How's it going, everyone? I'm Landon with LMR.com. Today we're going to be replacing the valve cover gaskets on a Fox body Mustangs, but the steps that are going to be shown will be applicable for a 1994 and 1995 pushrod V8 Mustang as well. So replacing the valve cover gaskets on a small block Ford is bound to happen at some point in the car's life. Sometimes this happens multiple times depending on the quality of work and the quality of gasket that was used in a previous repair. Currently, we offer two different gaskets on LMR.com, a rubber bonded steel core gasket and a steel gasket with a bonded O-ring seal. Both of these work exceptionally well, but my personal favorite is the bonded O-ring steel, which is the one we're going to be using on our 1990 GT. We're going to finally be replacing the valve cover gaskets on this car as we've been putting it off for far too long now, so it's just time to get it done. These valve cover gaskets will work with all small block Ford engines. We do have a standalone video on how to remove the upper intake manifold from a 1986 to 1993 fuel-injected Fox Mustang, and that one can be found down in the description. Now, for those of you that have a carbureted application, this is pretty straightforward since you'll have plenty of working room. And of course, depending on your setup, you may have to remove the air cleaner and the associated components. Like I said earlier, the steps shown will also be applicable for 1994 and 1995 pushrod V8 Mustangs. Their upper intake design was a little bit different, but the steps to replace the valve cover gaskets are the same as what you're going to see in this video. Before we disassembled anything, I took the car outside and degreased and pressure washed the areas underneath the valve cover. Then with the car back inside and on a lift, it never hurts to start with the negative battery cable disconnected, so go ahead and do so. With the upper intake removed, we can go ahead and remove the valve covers from the cylinder heads. Clean the surface on the lower intake with some brake clean, and then cover the open ports with tape. So upon further inspection, we noticed that pretty much all of the valve cover retaining bolts had come loose, which is why the surrounding areas are so dirty. I'll be starting on the driver's side valve cover and cleaning the lower intake area since I have easy access. First, we'll need to make some additional working room. Disconnect the inlet air temp sensor, fuel injectors, oil pressure sensor, and TFI module. Position these harnesses out of the way. Also, don't forget to remove the spark plug holders from the valve cover studs. Go ahead and remove the coil cover. Disconnect the 4 plug wires in the ignition coil, and then position these wires over the front of the engine. If it's still intact, remove the factory engine support bracket. It's held in place with 2 9/16 nuts. Start the cleanup process by vacuuming the large chunks of crap near the valve cover. Depending on how dirty the area is will ultimately dictate how much cleaning you have to do. We had to do quite a bit, which involves some degreaser, brake clean, a small brush, and several towels. Compressed air will also help dislodge some of the hard to reach crud. Once you feel like you've done enough cleaning, locate the 6 valve cover retaining bolts. Loosen and remove these bolts with a 7/16 socket. Whenever all of the fasteners have been removed, carefully dislodge the valve cover with a small pry tool. The valve cover can now be removed from the car. The driver's side quart gasket really gave us a challenge. I spent roughly an hour carefully removing the old gasket material, all while being careful not to get any pieces in the cylinder head. Do your best and cover the valve train with some towels. I found it helpful to loosen the hold down nut on the dipstick bracket and position it out of the way. Now in our situation, the header bolt came all the way out, so I had to remove the nut from the stud on the workbench and then reinstall the bolt. A sharp razor blade and a gasket scraper will be your go-to tools in removing the old quart gasket. Whenever all the gasket material is removed, cut some Scotch-Brite into small squares and thoroughly scuff the surface until it is nice and smooth. Wipe down the mating surface and then clean the 6 bolt holes. I wipe the upper section with a towel and then flush the hole with a shot of compressed air. Now that the cylinder head mating surface is ready, take this time to thoroughly clean the valve cover and associated hardware. Lay out and organize all of the clean hardware. Ensure that the valve cover mating surface is clean as well as the new gasket. Position the new gasket over the valve cover in the correct orientation and insert one of the fasteners through the bolt hole in the valve cover. Go ahead and position the valve cover in place and loosely install the fastener. Now you can install the other 5 fasteners, making sure they pass cleanly through the valve cover and gasket. Run all the fasteners down by hand and then torque them to 15 to 20 pound-feet working from the inside out. Go ahead and repeat these same steps for the other side, except that you'll find that the heater tube will prevent you from cleaning the lower intake manifold. I flushed it the best I could with compressed air and continued on. Now that both valve covers are reinstalled, you can reinstall and reroute all of the previously removed components. Reconnect the negative battery cable. Start the car and take it for a little drive to get the engine to operating temperature. That way you can check for leaks. After that, you're good to go. All right, people, wrapping things up. I hope this video helped you out as always. And depending on the individual situation, I'll be willing to bet that you're probably going to spend more time removing components and cleaning the surrounding area than actually replacing the valve cover gaskets. But hey, on these older cars, that's just par for the course. For the most up-to-date product information, pricing, and availability on anything you saw in the video, please reference our website. Well, that's all we have for you today. Remember, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and for all things 79 to present Mustang and SVT Lightning, keep it right here with the real enthusiasts, LMR.com.